Hello, my name is Huizimang Elias Mabiletsa. Today is Sunday, the 6th of August in Vosloorus, South Africa, and I welcome you from wherever you are in the world to the launch of my podcast, The Truth About Us. Thank you for being here. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself and my work. Ever since I was a little boy, I've always enjoyed helping people to resolve difficulties in their lives, in however small ways I could. When I think of it, I believe this comes from the fact that I learned while I was still very young that nothing motivates people like happiness, however small it can be. And as a result, I've always enjoyed being in places where, even if for a moment, people could just forget the problems they still have to resolve and appreciate whatever is going well with their lives, the solutions they already have. I sincerely believe that the strength we need as people to confront the difficult situations in our lives lies in our ability to enjoy those things that are already as well as they should be. And the reason why we ever want to overcome any difficulty in life is to get to the happiness that lies beyond it. And it is for that reason that in all my writings I emphasize happiness as the purpose of every living being, the happiness that becomes peace whenever it is shared with others. I have written a book, We Are God, The Power is Within Us, in which I share the lessons and experiences I've gained in my quest to understand the issues of human suffering. Suffering, of course, being anything that stands in the way of our happiness. Just like with a book, this podcast is also another way in which I hope to remind the people of the world of their true nature by which to confront and resolve the underlying causes of human suffering. And with this suffering resolved, to dwell more in the state of happiness as our preferred and natural state of being. So, today I hope to appeal to your mind, but before then, I have created this launch episode as a guide to outline what you can expect from this episode today and going forward. Now, I do not want to keep you here for longer than is necessary, because after this episode, there is another that I have posted and would urge you to hear it as well. It will help to clarify the direction of this podcast further. So, if you can, I suggest you go and listen to it also just after this one, and thereafter you can like, subscribe, tell someone about it. But please, don't forget to also tell me what you think. I truly value your feedback. It can only help me to improve my services to you. Okay, I think we can now get right to the business of the day, shall we? Okay, what do I aim to achieve with this podcast? I aim to heal the world by healing the human minds that shape it, so that the harmony that comes with a healed mind can begin to create peacefully in the world. How do I hope to achieve the healing of the mind? By reminding the mind that it is the source from which ideas are formed, goals are set, choices are made before they all become reality in the physical world. That way I affirm the mind as the initial point of every act of creation. Now, think about the law of a country. Do you know that the law is created by people based on what they currently know and understand about themselves? And that the more knowledge we gain about ourselves, the more we change the laws to reflect that new understanding. What I'm saying is that all the physical structures that we ever create in the world, just like the law, all come from the mind, and when the mind that created them changes, they also change. I believe the more we appreciate the connection between the things we do and the things we think, the more we realize that choice plays a major role in our lives. Our bodies and the things in our environment are only tools we use for creating. And whenever something goes wrong in us or in our world, it's often because we're misusing these tools. Therefore, to correct all our personal and social ills, we firstly need to correct the minds, and only then can we correct the things that we created. Now, this understanding, I strongly believe, is our salvation from all forms of suffering, and it is what the world needs urgently now, today. What can be expected from the podcast? It's important to say this from the onset that in this podcast you will hear so much about the things you know very well, but discussed in ways that may challenge how you understand them to be. The aim is to present different views of the same world that we all share, and to help break the fear to look within ourselves and challenge those beliefs that make us feel small, vulnerable, and weak. To see ourselves differently as invincible and strong, we need to start embracing those uncomfortable truths about ourselves, the biggest of which is the fact that all of us are one with things and people that we may not be comfortable to be regarded as being one with. Our lives in the world become limited when we cannot allow ourselves to interact with the wholeness of our reality. By fully embracing even the strange parts of our lives, We embrace the totality of life, and from that abundance, all our human needs are met. After all the people we call our best friends and loved ones often come in our lives as strangers, and it is our embrace of them that turns them into our favorite people. But more on this in the future episodes. For now, what kind of approach am I going to take in meeting the objectives of this podcast? With this podcast, I aim to take
esotericism and theory
out of spirituality and present everything we've ever heard of about spirituality in a way that is more practical, relevant, and accessible to each person as their natural state of being. In that way, this channel shall help to bring clarity to the issues of personal responsibility in our everyday pursuit of happiness, as well as to the more pressing social issues of everyday, such as issues of identity, mind, gender, artificial intelligence, social contract, climate change, happiness, love, peace, choice, birth, death, and everything about a dramatic life in between. How often and in what format will the podcast be presented? This podcast will be presented to you once every week on Sundays. I will present it mostly in a solo format and in a build-up kind of way, so that by understanding the initial episodes, one could begin to put every other topic into its correct context and heighten the understanding of the material presented. Somehow I find it necessary to repeat what I said earlier, just as a matter of emphasis, that this podcast will take very complicated concepts and present them in ways that make them accessible and practical. And much of the materials presented here would only require the common sense of the things we already know in one way or another. So, no specialized prior knowledge of anything is required, but of course, its presence would still be helpful to our understanding. At times, my presentations would take the form of an interview or a discussion, a question and answer session, where the interviewer would lead a list of the most frequently asked questions, and I will provide answers to them. There's also an imminent possibility to make this podcast fully audiovisual. I'm currently exploring the workload that would be involved in realizing that, just to establish if the work involved would still allow me to honor my basic commitment to you, that of a weekly podcast episode. Any suggestions, of course, regarding any ways of presenting the podcast would be welcome and appreciated. However, my emphasis is not on any specific method, but on the ultimate goal of sharing the empowering message regarding our overwhelming power that we, the people of the world, have over our circumstances. What do I expect from the listeners and the viewers of my podcast? The world in which we live today is changing drastically from the one we have grown and gotten used to one that requires that we review even the very tools, means, and methods that we use to live it. The change comes as a great challenge to our comfort zones, and the sooner we embrace it by trusting that we actually can change, the more likely we are to adapt to the new environment of our world and rise above the challenges of our time and the suffering they wrought. The change that is happening in the world today, both to the climate and to the human psyche, is necessary. Firstly, for our Earth to re-establish its own balance in a new way, something that is partly made necessary by what we have done to our planet, while on the other hand, the people of the world also need to re-establish a new balance in terms of how we live with each other in the world, and how we can become more inclusive in sharing its resources and resolving its challenges together for the benefit of all the people. Lastly, I ask of my audience to engage with me solely in terms of how we can all continue to find peace with each other and with our environment as the world continues to change. Thank you very much for your presence, and with that, I declare this podcast launched. Please like and subscribe to our channel, as well as keep those comments coming, and until next time, goodbye.